Welcome back. Guys, in today's video, we're diving into a topic that is crucial to understanding the dynamics of relationships. What does a woman truly feel when you're not around? Now, you might think that a woman's feelings for you are only tested when you're right in front of her, but in reality, it's when you're not there that her emotions are put to the test. In this video, we're going to break down what actually happens in her mind when you're absent, and trust me, it's not as simple as just missing you. This topic is incredibly important, not only for understanding how women feel, but also for knowing where you stand in your relationship. You might think constant attention is necessary to keep a woman interested, but I'm here to tell you that's a lie. In fact, the space you create when you step back, whether intentionally or not, determines whether she respects you or sees you as just another option. So, stick around as we break it down and reveal what a woman actually goes through when you're not around. Let's start by talking about one of the first things that happens when you're not around, a woman's emotional shift. It's easy to think that when you're absent, all she's doing is missing you, but it's much deeper than that. When you pull away, a woman begins to question the value of your presence in her life. If you've been a consistent part of her world, always available and constantly texting, your absence might not make much of a dent. But if you've been a man who offers real leadership, confidence, and security, your absence will create a noticeable void. At first, she may not even realize what she's missing. She'll go about her day as usual, busy with her own life and enjoying the attention from other guys. But after a while, something shifts. She begins to wonder, why did I like him in the first place? Was it his confidence, his ambition, or the way he made her feel secure? These thoughts begin to creep in, and suddenly, she's reevaluating your value. This is where the real power of absence comes into play. If you've been a man who stands firm, maintains boundaries, and doesn't always chase her, she'll start to feel the gap you left behind. She'll realize that no one else is quite measuring up. The excitement, the masculine energy you brought, it's missing, and she starts to crave it again. But if you've been overly available, constantly trying to make her happy, she might not feel much at all. In fact, she could even feel relieved. Here's the kicker. The absence of a man who has real value is a powerful thing. If you've been a constant source of excitement and strength, when you step back, that absence will make her realize what she was missing. But if you've been a man who always chases and puts her first, she might not even notice you're gone. This is a key moment in the relationship. It shows you whether she truly values you or whether you've just been another convenience in her life. And this is where we transition to the next point, how absence can shift the balance of power in the relationship. When a man is absent, it forces a woman to reassess her place in the relationship and the value he brings. This isn't just about missing someone. It's about the deeper evaluation of what that person truly adds to her life. A woman's feelings of affection and attachment often deepen in the absence of a man who has made a positive and significant impact. However, if the man's influence hasn't been substantial, his absence may not leave much of an impression. For example, if a man has been emotionally distant or has failed to offer stability and security, when he steps back, the woman might not feel much a difference. She may continue with her life as usual, not feeling the absence as deeply as someone who has provided more meaningful presence in the relationship. On the other hand, when a man brings real value to a relationship, his absence triggers a much stronger reaction. A woman starts to feel a sense of loss, and it's more than just missing his physical presence. It's about missing the safety, the strength, and the emotional security that she once felt when he was around. When a man provides leadership, emotional stability, and a sense of purpose in a relationship, his absence creates a gap that she recognizes. The void becomes apparent in her daily life, and she may start to crave the feeling of being emotionally supported or secure once more. It's in these moments that a woman truly understands what he brought into her life, and she may find herself longing for that connection again, especially if it's been absent for some time. This is when absence proves to be a powerful force in relationships. It shows both partners the true value they offer to one another. Now, let's dive into the psychological aspect of how a woman's ego is affected when a man pulls away. Women are often used to being the center of attention in a relationship, and they expect their partner to be available and attentive. When a man withdraws or stops paying attention as he did before, her ego feels it. Initially, she may brush off the lack of attention, assuming that he's simply busy or preoccupied. But as time passes and he doesn't reach out, her ego begins to take a hit. She starts questioning why he's not giving her the same level of attention as before. This feeling of being ignored is not just about the absence of attention, but about how it makes her feel less valued or desirable. As her ego takes a hit, a shift happens in the dynamic of the relationship. A woman who was once used to being chased or pursued starts to feel insecure. This feeling of insecurity doesn't necessarily come from a lack of affection. Instead, it comes from not being the priority. She begins to evaluate her own position in his life, wondering why he is no longer chasing her or pursuing her with the same intensity. The balance of power shifts, and she finds herself questioning whether she was ever really pursued, or she had been the one chasing him all along. This feeling of uncertainty often leads to what many people might perceive as testing behavior. For example, a woman may start posting more pictures on social media, dressing up more than usual, or even trying to get attention from other men. These actions aren't necessarily about her genuinely wanting attention from other people. They're designed to see if the man will notice, react, or start showing interest again. In many cases, this is her way of testing whether she still has the same emotional impact on him as before. It's her way of seeing if he will chase her once more. These tests are subtle but powerful, and they highlight how a woman's ego reacts when a man steps back in a relationship. It's not just about missing him, it's about regaining the feeling of being wanted and valued. The key here is for a man to remain steady. If he responds to these tests by giving in or becoming overly eager, he may unintentionally validate her insecurity, and the power dynamic will shift again. However, if he maintains his distance and doesn't react to her attempts to regain control, he shows her that he is emotionally stable and knows his worth. This, in turn, forces her to confront her own feelings of uncertainty and question whether she truly values him or if her ego has simply been bruised by the absence of his attention. This phase of the relationship tests both partners' understanding of value, ego, and the need for balance in emotional exchanges. When a man pulls away, the changes in the relationship dynamics can be significant, and this is especially true for the woman involved. The absence of a man in her life often forces her to feel the power shift in ways you may not have anticipated. For a woman who is used to being pursued, the absence of that attention can feel like a sudden jolt. Initially, she may brush it off, thinking that perhaps he's just busy or distracted. However, as time passes and the man doesn't reach out, it begins to trigger something deeper. This feeling of uncertainty and the lack of control over the relationship dynamic starts to stir within her. In most relationships, especially early on, women are often in a position where they are the ones receiving attention and affection, and men are typically the ones chasing. But when this changes, when the man pulls back, the woman is forced to confront a new reality. She's no longer in control. This shift in power can be uncomfortable for her. She may start to question her own place in his life, wondering if she's still important to him, or if it's starting to pull away for a reason she hasn't yet understood. This feeling of being left uncertain often sparks something in her. She'll either try to regain the power she once held, or she may decide to move on entirely. The more she starts to question his commitment and her own importance, the more she's likely to react emotionally. The withdrawal of attention, particularly if she's used to being the focal point of the relationship, forces her to acknowledge that she no longer has the same level of control. This uncertainty can leave her feeling vulnerable, unsure of where she stands, and this sense of powerlessness is not something women generally enjoy experiencing. They are accustomed to feeling in control of their relationships and having their needs met in a predictable way. When that dynamic changes, they must adapt or risk losing the relationship altogether. On the other hand, if the man's absence doesn't create any significant emotional stir, it can be a sign that the woman might not be as invested as she appeared to be. If she doesn't feel the absence deeply, or if the emotional gap created by his pullback is easily filled by other aspects of her life, it's possible that she never truly valued him as much as he thought. This could manifest as her quickly seeking validation elsewhere, whether through social interactions or through new attention from others. When a woman doesn't experience any discomfort from a man's absence, it's a red flag that she might not view him as irreplaceable. The moment this occurs, men often panic. They wonder if they've lost her forever, and that fear drives them to act desperate. The typical response in such situations might involve bombarding her with messages, over-apologizing, or trying to prove their worth. But here's where many men go wrong. Desperation only pushes the woman further away. It signals to her that she has the power to control the situation, which feeds her ego and often leads to her further pulling away. Instead, a man should recognize that if she doesn't miss him, it's better to walk away with his dignity intact. If she doesn't value his absence, then it might be time to let go, because no amount of pleading will change her feelings. A high-value man knows his worth and doesn't chase validation from someone who doesn't appreciate it. If the woman does begin to miss the man, however, the shift in dynamics can lead to a completely different outcome. When she starts to feel the loss of his presence, it forces her to reassess her feelings and evaluate the relationship. She might even find herself reconsidering her behavior and her initial reactions. This process of reevaluation can lead her to take the relationship more seriously, to recognize the value he brought, and to want to make an effort to restore the connection. In this scenario, the absence has served its purpose. It has tested a woman's commitment and revealed her true level of investment in the relationship. If she's truly invested, she'll return with more respect and a renewed sense of appreciation, showing the man that his absence was indeed felt. When a man pulls away, women often begin to test him to gauge the depth of his feelings and commitment. This is a natural reaction when a woman feels uncertain or insecure about the relationship. The absence of the man triggers a sense of vulnerability, and instead of directly expressing that vulnerability, she may engage in indirect actions to see how he responds. For instance, she might send a message to check if he still cares, post a new photo on social media, or try to draw attention in subtle ways. These actions are not always about seeking validation from others, but rather a way to test whether the man is still paying attention and is emotionally invested in her. When a woman feels the absence of a man, her instinct is often to regain the emotional security she once felt. Testing his reactions is a way to assess whether he is still emotionally connected or if he has truly pulled away. These tests are a way to check whether the relationship is still solid or if the emotional bond is fading. She might not consciously realize she's doing it, but it's a natural response to regain control and reassurance in a relationship that feels uncertain due to his absence. If the man reacts by showing more attention or trying to win her back, it can confirm to her that she still holds power in the relationship. However, if he remains distant or unresponsive, it forces her to confront her own feelings and evaluate the relationship in a new light. When a man's absence doesn't seem to make much of an emotional impact on a woman, she will start to consider other options. If the emotional gap created by his pullback isn't filled with a strong sense of longing or desire for his presence, it becomes a sign that she may no longer prioritize him. At this point, the woman might begin to look elsewhere, testing the waters to see if someone else might offer the attention and value that she's missing from the man who has withdrawn. If she doesn't feel that loss or craving for him, it's a clear signal that he might not have been as irreplaceable as he thought. This is a critical moment for a man to realize that if he hasn't created real value or emotional security in the relationship, he could easily be replaced. This shift in perspective can also reveal how easily a woman can move on if she feels that the relationship isn't fulfilling her needs or that the man is no longer a priority. It's a wake-up call for men to understand that if their absence doesn't leave an impact, they are not as deeply ingrained in a woman's life as they might have believed. A woman who can quickly replace the man in her thoughts and actions is often signaling that she has been looking for someone else to fill that emotional space all along. If the woman doesn't miss the man's presence, it may mean that she didn't see him as an essential part of her life in the first place. This is when men need to step back and understand their worth. If a woman can move on easily, it's not necessarily a reflection of the man's worth, but rather her investment in the relationship. A high-value man knows that if he isn't getting the respect and attention he deserves, it's better to walk away than to chase someone who hasn't valued him from the start. It's crucial to recognize that when a woman starts seeking attention elsewhere, it's a sign that the relationship might not be as strong as he thought, and it's time to reassess his place in her life. When it comes to relationships, men must understand the value of self-respect and recognize that they don't need to constantly chase attention from women. Often, it's the moments of absence that can show a man's true worth. When a man steps back and doesn't constantly seek validation or attention, it's an opportunity for him to prove his value. By maintaining independence and not overextending himself, he allows women to realize that he is not someone who can be easily taken for granted. A man who knows his worth and doesn't desperately seek approval or attention is infinitely more attractive to women. When a man is confident in his own life, has goals, and continues to grow, women are naturally drawn to him. His absence will make them realize the strength, stability, and leadership he provides, things they can't easily find in someone else. Women respect men who aren't constantly available, and it's this absence that often increases a woman's interest. If he remains composed, doesn't chase after her, and lets her come to him when she's ready, she will appreciate him more. Their self-sufficiency and confidence are what women value, and this is what ultimately makes them an irresistible partner. If you found value in this video, I encourage you to join our community where we dive deeper into personal growth and relationships. By joining, you'll gain practical insights on how to build meaningful connections, not only with others but with yourself. This community is about supporting each other to grow and learn how to navigate the complexities of relationships confidently. I'd also love to hear your thoughts. Have you ever experienced the power of absence in a relationship? How did it affect the dynamic between you and your partner? Share your experiences in the comments below. Let's start a conversation, exchange ideas, and learn from each other's journeys. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and join our community for more empowering content.